Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We are building this explainer directly from the incredible source material of neuroscientist David Eagleman's acclaimed book, Incognito, The Secret Lives of the Brain. We're going to take his brilliant insights and translate them into a clear, visual journey deep into the vast, hidden, subterranean machinery that is actually running your mind right this very second. So let's jump right in. Okay, let me ask you something. Have you ever pulled out of your driveway, gotten completely lost in thought about, a stressful meeting or a personal issue, and suddenly you find yourself parked in your garage 20 minutes later with literally zero memory of the drive? You stopped at red lights, steered through traffic, maintained your speed, all flawlessly? So the really unsettling question here is, who was actually driving the car while your conscious mind was completely out to lunch? Section 1, the illusion of control. That everyday spooky phenomenon of highway hypnosis completely debunks the myth that your conscious mind is the absolute CEO of your brain. Instead, imagine your brain as a massive, sprawling global megacorporation. Your conscious mind, it isn't the CEO. It's actually just the daily corporate newsletter sitting on a coffee table in the lobby. It gives you a super clean, simplified summary like, hey, a new factory opened in Singapore. But it tells you absolutely nothing about the thousands of engineers, logistics experts, and laborers working second by second to actually make it happen. You are just a tiny hitchhiker reading the executive summary. To really grasp how much work is hidden from that little newsletter, think about a totally effortless action. Just lifting a glass of water. You just think, hey, pick up glass. But behind the scenes, it's wild. Step 1, your visual cortex is calculating photon reflections just to gauge distance. Step 2, your motor cortex is computing the exact complex geometry of your shoulder, elbow, and wrist. Step 3, millions of electrical signals are firing with perfect precision. And step 4, tactile sensors in your fingertips are continuously adjusting friction so you don't drop the thing. Honestly, if you had to consciously control all of these fibers and feedback loops yourself, your brain would instantly collapse under the strain. Section 2. Constructing your reality. Because your subconscious handles all that heavy lifting, your conscious mind is free to just, experience the world. But here's the kicker. How accurate is that experience? We all have this massive misconception that our eyes are like passive video cameras, just streaming a high-definition, objective reality straight into our heads. But the reality? Vision is a heavily edited, active internal simulation. Physically speaking, your peripheral vision is incredibly blurry, it's mostly colorblind, and every single human eye has a massive physical blind spot right where the optic nerve connects. But you don't walk around seeing two gaping black holes in your vision, right? That's because your brain seamlessly fabricates the missing visual data based on what it expects to be there. To prove just how much of the world our conscious mind simply glosses over, let's look at the famous change blindness experiment. Get this. A researcher stops a pedestrian on the street to ask for directions. Suddenly, some workers carry a large wooden door right between them, blocking the pedestrian's view for maybe 2 seconds. Behind that door, the researcher is secretly swapped out for a completely different actor. I'm talking different height, different clothes, different voice. Astonishingly, over 50% of pedestrians never even notice the swap. They just keep giving directions. Why? Because the conscious mind only built a low-resolution functional model of student asking for directions and completely ignored the actual physical details. As the saying goes, we do not see with our eyes, we see with our nervous system. The brilliant neuroscientist Paul Bach-y-Rita actually proved this with blind patients. He had them sit in chairs equipped with a grid of vibrating pins on their backs, and this grid was connected to a video camera. Over time, these patients' brains literally learned to decode those vibrations on their skin into actual spatial vision. They could duck a rolling ball or reach out and grab a coffee cup. It's unbelievable, but it proves the brain really doesn't care where the sensory data comes from. It just takes raw electrical spikes and actively builds a 3D reality out of them. Section 3. Under the radar. So if our reality is basically a massive internal construct, what else is happening completely beneath our awareness? Well, conscious thought is actually incredibly clunky and slow. Think about a pro basketball player. When they start consciously overthinking the exact angle of their wrist, what happens? They choke. They miss the free throw because they're disrupting their automated neural subroutines. But subconscious instinct, it is lightning fast. Take Japanese master chicken sexers. They can sort thousands of newborn baby chicks by gender in the blink of an eye. And if you ask them how they do it, they literally cannot tell you. There are no conscious rules they're following. Their subconscious brains have just learned to detect microscopic visual patterns over months of practice, resulting in pure, inexplicable gut instinct. Section 4. Your brain's internal war. With all these powerful automated systems running the show behind the scenes, it's really no wonder we sometimes feel so conflicted. Eagleman introduces this deeply transformative idea. Your brain is not a single unified thinker at all. It's actually a team of rivals, a neuroparliament constantly at war with itself. I mean, have you ever set a 6 a.m. alarm vowing to hit the gym, only to have your 6 a.m. self violently smash the snooze button? Which one is the real you? The crazy answer is both of them. They are competing neural coalitions. To fight this, we often use what's called a Ulysses contract. Named after the Greek myth where Ulysses tied himself to a ship's mast so his future self couldn't steer into the siren's rocks, it's basically when your rational brain sets up a physical constraint, like leaving your credit card at home before a night out, to restrict the impulsive, reckless urges of your future emotional brain. This internal civil war is perfectly illustrated by the classic trolley problem. Now, the math in both scenarios is exactly identical. Sacrifice one life to save five. But if you tell people they have to pull a distant lever to switch the tracks, most say it's logically the right choice. Brain scans show this activates the logical prefrontal cortex. However, if you tell them they have to physically push a heavy stranger off a bridge to stop the train, people are absolutely horrified. Why? Because using your own physical hands triggers a massive evolutionary emotional override in the amygdala, and that completely shuts down your cold logic. Your brain's distinct networks are literally fighting each other over the decision. And what happens when these brain networks are actually physically disconnected? This is where it gets crazy. Look at Michael Gazzaniga's stunning split brain experiments. When the command walk was secretly flashed only to the patient's right hemisphere, the patient immediately stood up and started walking. But the left hemisphere, which houses the language center, had absolutely no idea why the body was moving. So did it admit it had no clue? Nope. The left hemisphere instantly invented a false, logical-sounding story, claiming, "Oh, I just wanted to go grab a soda." Our conscious mind essentially acts as an interpreter, constantly acting like a PR agent, fabricating narratives after the fact to maintain this grand illusion that it's the one in charge. Section 5. The limits of perception. Knowing that our conscious mind is such a master storyteller, we really need to look outward for a second. Biologists use this brilliant concept called the Umwelt, which basically means the unique sensory universe of a specific species. Imagine a forest. A tick sitting on a branch only experiences temperature and the smell of acid from passing mammals. That's its entire world. A pit viper sees infrared thermal heat, a bat navigates using high-frequency sonar, and humans, we only perceive a teeny tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum called visible light. We are completely blind to radio waves, X-rays, and the complex chemical trails that dogs can smell. None of us are experiencing absolute reality. We are all just trapped in our own specific evolutionary Umwelt. Section 6. Biology on the trial. So if our entire reality and our behavior is so hopelessly tied to our physical biology, what happens when this biology is brought into the incredibly high-stakes arena of the criminal justice system? Well, consider the tragic, true timeline of Charles Whitman. Before 1966, he was an exemplary Marine, happily married, with zero history of violence. But in early 1966, he started experiencing these terrifying, overwhelming surges of violent impulses that he simply couldn't control. After committing a horrific mass shooting that August, he actually left a note begging for an autopsy of his brain. And the result? Pathologists found a pecan-sized tumor pressing directly on his amygdala, the brain's emotional control panel. His physical machinery had been completely hijacked. In Whitman's case is not an isolated incident. In another incredibly jarring medical shift, a mild-mannered man developed an orbitofrontal cortex tumor that suddenly triggered abhorrent pedophilic urges. When surgeons removed the tumor, the dangerous urges stopped instantly. But later, when the tumor grew back, the urges returned. Similarly, certain medications used to treat Parkinson's disease boost dopamine, and they have the unintentional side effect of turning perfectly normal patients into severe gambling addicts practically overnight. This data strongly suggests that what we like to call our moral character is actually heavily dependent on the pristine health of our physical brain hardware. Which brings us to a massively provocative question. If a person's behavior can be completely derailed by a microscopic shift in their brain chemistry or a small tumor, how can we continue to speak of pure, unblemished moral blameworthiness? Eagleman highlights a crucial point here. Yes, society absolutely must be protected from dangerous people. It's just like taking a car with broken brakes off the road. You have to do it. But our archaic legal notions of pure free will and harsh, backward-looking retribution, they are deeply biologically naive. Based on all this evidence, Eagleman proposes a pretty radical future for the law. The justice system needs to shift away from backward-looking retribution and move toward forward-looking risk assessment. This means safely and humanely segregating those individuals who simply cannot be cured, while actively utilizing targeted neuro-rehabilitation for those who can. For example, he suggests using things like prefrontal workouts, where inmates use real-time brain feedback to physically strengthen the impulse control networks in their own brains. It's about fixing the hardware, not just punishing the symptom. Section 7, the Third Great Demotion. So does losing this grand illusion of conscious control mean we somehow lose our human dignity? Not necessarily. Historically, humanity has suffered through what Eagleman calls three great demotions. In the 16th century, Copernicus proved Earth isn't the center of the universe. Ouch. In the 19th century, Darwin showed us that we aren't somehow separate from the rest of nature. And now, right here in the 21st century, neuroscience is proving that your conscious mind isn't even the center of your own brain. Now, while that might feel a bit terrifying at first, Eagleman brilliantly frames this final demotion not as a loss, but as a deeply liberating unburdening of the human ego. He says, "The secret life of your brain is not an enemy to be feared. It is a vast, miraculous frontier waiting to be explored." Just think about it. The fact that billions of neurons are working tirelessly in total darkness right now to allow you to paint, to fall in love, to dream, it is an absolute marvel of biological engineering. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer today. Now, I want to leave you with one final thought. If your conscious mind is truly just a tiny passenger on this incredible biological ride, what on earth is the rest of your brain secretly doing right now? Keep exploring, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.